On behalf of SVP, I'm really pleased and delighted to welcome all of you. I don't know whether, my sense today is that everybody is super busy and we're getting busier. And so the fact that you've all prioritized your time to be with us for the full day is something that we're truly grateful for. And before I start, I want to extend a particularly warm welcome to all our friends, international friends who've traveled from far away to be with us, from as far away as China, the US, from Egypt, and the UK. So we're here to talk, as Shruti said, about jobs and livelihoods. Now, wherever I travel and I talk to people, it seems clear and more evident to me that the issue of jobs is rapidly rising to the top of list of concerns in every country. And we see this most dramatically play out right now in real time in the United States with the new president-elect. But I think it's fair to say that no country has a bigger numerical challenge than we have in India, partly because of our size and significantly because of demographics. I think some others will throw out the numbers, but approximately we need to be creating about 1 million livelihood opportunities every month, because that's roughly the number of people who enter the workforce age every month. That's quite a staggering number. And the challenge is that in the last few years, the number of net new jobs we have created has been quite anemic relative to that. And if anything, this challenge is likely to get much steeper because of technology. It's predicted that new technologies like low-cost robotics and artificial intelligence and software-driven automation, all these things, will probably destroy 2/3 of all jobs in India. India is predicted to be the country that is most impacted by new technologies after China. And you can already begin to see the impact of this on hiring by the IT industry, which has been the most important engine of job creation for the last 2.5 decades. So that's what we're here to talk about. Now, clearly, the government has an important role to play, but I think it's important to note that the job of job creation, pun intended, is that of the private sector. It is not that of government, but it is the role of government to create an enabling environment that allows businesses in the private sector to flourish and create jobs. And so favorable, sensible macroeconomic policies that stimulate economic growth, reducing the friction that businesses face to operate day to day. So improving the ease of doing business, GST, those kinds of things are important. Investments in infrastructure, super crucial. Putting an emphasis on making in India, and incentives for entrepreneurial activity. These are all very important things. And the government is trying to do some of all this. But the really important thing to recognize is in our country, 90% of all people actually are employed in the informal sector. And much as we may wish to embrace them and bring them into the formal economy, that shift is not likely to happen overnight. For the longest time, the informal sector is going to be super critical from a jobs and livelihood perspective. And therefore, we have to think not in terms of traditional jobs and formal jobs, but in terms of income-generating opportunities, micro-entrepreneurship, and self-employment. And these are the kinds of issues that we've been grappling with at SVP since we started in 2013. Just a quick aside about Social Venture Partners, because not many of you would have heard of us. It's an organization that started in Seattle in 1999. And the whole idea was to engage successful people in the communities in which they live. And the second idea was to bring the discipline of venture investing to philanthropy. And some of us decided to start this in Bangalore as an experiment in 2013, essentially because we felt now there are more and more people in India who are feeling successful, and they're reaching a point in their lives where they want to contribute back to society, and there's no easy way for them to get started. So we felt SVP would be a good model, so you can plug in, meet a community of like-minded people, and begin your philanthropic journey. And we picked livelihoods as our sole focus. From that very modest beginning today, SVP is in 5 cities. We have nearly 200 partners. We've raised about 6 crores so far, which is quite modest. But in terms of our biggest contribution is actually the time and expertise of our partners or donors. And there, the contribution has been about 18,000 hours. We've been working with 20 organizations, and we think we've made a modest improvement to about 15,000 lives. The fundamental way in which SVP has operated so far has been what I call scaling excellence, which means, very simply, finding organizations, they can be NGOs, they can be social enterprises, which are doing good work in the livelihood space, in skilling and placing people in jobs, in promoting micro-entrepreneurship, all these kinds of things, and then finding ways to help them dramatically scale up their impact. And I'll give you a simple illustration to bring this to life. In Pune, there's an organization we've been working with called Jagruti Sanstha. Jagruti is a very established organization. They've been around for quite a long time. And what they do is mobilize young women from really poor communities around Pune, and they train them to be nursing aides, and then they place them in clinics and hospitals and so forth. And they do this really a high commitment organization, and they've been skilling and placing about 25 people a year for the last few years. And then a team from Pune, SVP Pune, got involved under the leadership of Narendra Goidani. I know he's somewhere in the room. He's a very distinctive person. If you see him, you won't forget him. And something magical has happened in terms of their transformation. In the first year of engagement, they doubled the number of people trained and placed to 50. This year, they're on course to do 500. This morning when I had breakfast, he said, yeah, no problem, we're going to surpass that. And they're confident that in a year, they will double that number to 1,000. And when I said, are there any limits to this? He said, so far away, we don't think about it. So that's it. Now, not all our engagements are this successful, but I think it's the most vivid example of how we partner with an already sort of amazing organization and help them scale their growth. However, you can see immediately there is a problem, that even at 1,000 or 2,000, we're not even making the minutest dent in the gargantuan livelihoods problem that our country has. So some of us have been thinking about how are we really ever going to make a dent here, right? So we put this audacious goal out there of 1 million livelihoods. Very strictly, it's not jobs, it's livelihoods. And we've been thinking about why is it that all big problems in India, social problems in India, tend to persist. You can take any problem, whether the challenge of literacy, of skilling, of sanitation, and there's a lot of effort, but the problems persist. There are probably many reasons for this, and we'll try and explore that with the panel. But one of the fundamental reasons appears to be that these complex problems require the whole ecosystem, multiple actors to come together and collaborate. And the problem today is all the actors in most of these problem areas tend to live and operate in silos. I'll give you a very simple example to bring this to life. I've been working with the Bank of Baroda for about 18 months. The bank, like all public sector banks, has priority sector lending targets. And my colleague, Mr. Bhuiya at the back, will correct me, but our bank disburses about 30,000 crores a year in agricultural loans. Others in the room, like Punjab National Bank and SBI and NABARD, do much more. Now, it turns out giving away 30,000 in loans, disbursing 30,000 in loans, I shouldn't use the word giveaway, disbursing 30,000 crores in loans in a way that actually makes a difference to the lives of farmers, which is sustainable so that the rate of NPAs is reasonable, is not easy. It's a really tough task. Okay, park this. On the other hand, SVP in Bangalore, and I've been part of this, has been working with an organization called Vritti, which is in the room. Vritti works with farmer-producer organization and tries to significantly improve the incomes of farmers. And one of the biggest challenges they have to scale up is access to capital, particularly working capital loans. So look at this problem. You've got farmers who want loans of a certain sort, and you've got banks struggling to meet their lending targets. And then So if you look at the agricultural ecosystem, you've got all these players. You've got government with their schemes, particularly state governments. You've got all the companies, fertilizer, seed, farm equipment manufacturers, which are trying to do their bit. You've got donors, foundations, but none of them, they all exist in silos with good intentions. They don't come together to drive a common outcome. So this was very interesting. And then there was this remarkable experiment which I was witness to from the sidelines. Rockefeller Foundation has funded a major initiative in Africa called YieldWise. And it turns out that half the food grown in Africa is wasted, thrown away. In India, that number is a little less than 30%. So this initiative is saying if we can make a substantial reduction in that wastage, we'll put more income in farmers' pockets. The really clever thing about this Rockefeller initiative is instead of spraying all broadly the money across Africa, they focused on specific food chains in specific geographies. And one of the most successful interventions has been around mangoes in Kenya. And what they've done very well is bring together the whole ecosystem, all these different players, to try and reduce the wastage of mangoes in Kenya with very good success. So this idea is now increasingly gathering momentum and credibility. The idea is called collective action, that unless all the players, business, government, civil society, lenders, and most of all the people whose lives we are trying to improve, come together to solve the problem, they will persist. So what is today? Today is fundamentally an experiment. It's an experiment to bring together a lot of the serious actors around the livelihoods challenge into a single room. With the help of Rockefeller and other people, we've identified carefully about 15 organizations in wave one who are doing quite remarkable work in the livelihood space. You're going to hear from them their ideas around how they will want to scale up dramatically and what help they need. And there's an opportunity here for all of you to decide which one of these pitches are most interesting, which one of these, whose work is most relevant to your organization. And then by the end of the day, we hope to have some alignments, if not expressions of commitment of taking this forward.